So next we'll talk about resist spray. What is resist spray? Well, resist spray, the best way to describe it, it's kind of like a sprayable glue, but it really isn't. You can see that it has the consistency of milk. It's very white in here. But what this is this will go onto a surface and it will actually seal the surface and make it waterproof, but also add texture. So when I put it on something, it's going to create a resist. And I say every surface because it will adhere to every surface, okay? It's going to adhere to metal, to glass, plastic, fabric, paper, wood, everything in your surrounding area, this will adhere to on contact. So when you use it, you don't use it in your creative space, you don't use it on your craft sheet, you don't use it on your media mat, you don't use it anywhere here, you use it in a box. A box with paper, and only a box with paper. And however good you think you are on this, trust me, you're gonna want 3 walls and paper. It won't go over the walls, so you're totally safe. But that's what we want, okay? Because this, and I'll just show you kind of this piece here, this is resist spray. This is what it is. It's got a little shine to it, but it has texture on it. And those little particles, as small as they are, will float off somewhere, and you will forever feel it. Yes, my entire MacBook. I covered my whole computer.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
After 3 days of spraying, I had no idea, and I learned the hard way. So now I'm telling you, it came clean with a razor blade. Check it out. Oh yeah, because you couldn't clean it off with water or even alcohol, and I wasn't going to try like mineral spirits on my MacBook, so I'm like, Mario, razor blade. All right, so when it comes to this, you can use any kind of paper you want that you want to create the resist, but we'll do a couple of things. So when I go to use it, I'm just going to place it down. Take this and you're just going to spray it on. And it creates a really fine mist, that's the thing. But if I want to create some big drops, I can go in and just kind of slowly squeeze the trigger to kind of get it, see how it spits out like a squirt gun? Now the great thing about this is that when you're done using it, you're simply going to clean it up with a baby wipe. Just one wipe on the nozzle. You don't have to unscrew this, you don't have to flush it out, you don't have to do any of that. As long as you wipe off the nozzle with a baby wipe, you're good to go, all right? Drying time on this, probably going to dry in about a minute or so. It's also heat stable, so I can dry it with a heat tool. When it dries, it will dry completely clear. So it goes on white, dries translucent. So whatever color surface you put it on, that is your resist. Which means I'm starting with just a plain tag, but I could have started with an inked tag, printed scrapbook paper, whatever I wanted. I could also apply it to a stencil. So you can see here I apply it to a stencil and you think, well, all right, Captain Obvious, what's the big deal about that? I can use VersaFine, I can use Versamark, I can use embossing powder, I can use gel medium. Yeah, but you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that spray pattern and that texture. And that's the cool thing about a sprayable resist is that when I spray through my stencil, you'll get that little bit of sheen, you get a little bit of texture, but you get those little tiny speckles of a resist.
But then you clean your stencil.
Yes, I just put it in water. So when I'm done, while it's wet, if I put it in wet, it will dissolve right off. If you let it dry, your stencil is an embellishment. Okay? Because even though I say it's a glue, when it dries, it's not sticky. So once the stuff dries on there, it's not like, oh my gosh, my stencils will be sticky. It won't be. When it dries, it's going to be a texture on there. So that's what we don't want. But I will show you something else. So let me dry this one, and then I'll show you another thing to do with resist spray. Okay? It's pretty awesome stuff. Now, one thing I have learned, don't stamp with it. Whatever idea you're thinking of, move on. Okay? Because even if it's wet, it won't come off your stamp. Rubber, clear, no. Nope. Cleaner, water, baby wipe, no. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, it'll never be the same. Yeah. But I tried it for you, so you're welcome. But it just doesn't. Because I thought it was the same as a stencil, but whatever is in rubber or polymer, it's obviously like instant bond, not coming off. The plastic stencil, that wasn't a problem. All right, this one's almost done. All right, so this is dry, but it still has a shine. Can you guys see that when I tip it in the light?
Yeah.
So it's nice. I wanted something that would actually reflect the light to really show that is a resist. And I can resist with a lot of things. I can take my blending brushes, I can take a blending tool, I can use oxides, I can use crayons. This one is distressed crayon with the resist. You can resist with a lot of mediums. Obviously the quickest one to demo with is going to be a spray stain, right? Because when I throw it in,
It's dry? Because it looks thick, like it looks...
it's textured. Yeah.
Okay, like it just looked wet.
I know.
Still, like from where I am, it looks like it's
but
wet,
it's
you
got a
guys.
great texture. It's got these like nuggety bits because it's a resist that is texture. So what's nice is this is not going to soak into your paper. And that's the thing about using, say, Versamark as a resist. You know that once you kind of do your magic, that is absorbed into the paper and you can't do it again.
So,
It's done.
does.
It is, well, it has some resins in it, yeah. But it's a very interesting thing that's water-based, but has to dry waterproof, because when I ink it and wet it, I can't have this re-wetting and dissolving.
Right.
Okay? So, now I'm going to go in with my inks. And again, whether you're going to use a blending tool, it doesn't really matter. However you wanted to apply your colors, this is just a really quick way to do it. Just going to add my inks. I'm always in the habit of wiping off my sprayers, doesn't matter what I use, because every ink has a resin, and it's a good habit to be in. All right, let's go in with this. That'll be good. All right, so once I spray ink, I'm always going to give it a little bit of water, not much, and then just pick this up. If you need to wear gloves, go ahead, whatever you need to do, and give it one rotation. And all that's going to do is take where you sprayed your ink and give it some unpredictable movement. Okay, if you don't, when you dry it, you're going to see that you just sprayed blue, yellow, green, pink, right? But here, when I dry it, now I'm going to have a background. Now, as I dry it, you'll notice that all my sludge, all that mucky color, went to the edge. If it looks like sludge, it dries like sludge. So if you don't like it, if you touch it, it will bring you back to that base layer, which was yellow or green. Down here it will be green and yellow, right? So just touching it, it'll always go down to that base layer. If you dried it, you'd have a nice line of brown. I would be good with that. David Shue, not good with that. But here you can see as it's drying, look at that resist just popping out, right? It gets better. It gets better. And everything that you do with your inks, you can still do. So I can add my water to it. I can go in, I can dab some of that off, because my resist, it's a done deal. That layer is not going to re-wet. That's going to allow me to do all of these cool background effects. Let's get that. I felt that I was in my own.
So it doesn't affect anything you do after?
No, once it's on there, it's on there. Which means at this point, I could even go in, now that I have a background, and say, oh, you know what? I want to, let's blend some color, you know? Let's add some salty ocean to this, okay? I can still go in and blend, but it's always going to protect in that area where that resist is. And so that's how I have the ability to kind of really amp up my color if I want. Right, so here I'm just going in, like, look, I'm making that kind of blue area just pop out a little bit more. But everything that's on there, it's done. And it has some texture to it. It has some really great kind of nuggety texture, and that is protecting it. Now, that was just from misting it. Obviously, if you focus it, you can get a big coverage. That's also very cool. So sometimes if I'm doing a collage, maybe I have some cool newsprint, right? I might just spray it right in the area to kind of almost mask that section, then do my inking around it so my paper almost looks exposed, and you can still stamp over the top of this. Obviously it's textured, so you're gonna want a platform or something you can do a repeat image. You can do rub-ons, you can write over the top of it, or you can just leave that area exposed, which is cool. Let me show you something else that you can do, especially if you like to work in journals or do any kind of mixed media work, and that is the fact that there's resist spray, because it has that texture and that thickness where you said it looks like it sits on the surface. It does. So that means I can take this and I can use my water bottle as a weapon. I can go in and use my embossing powders, right? Any embossing powder that you have. I can have my embossing powder. I can take this. I can take a resist spray. Let's see, let's do a stencil. Let's see, what do I want to do? I did a flourish already. We'll do it. Oh, doily's going to take me forever with Ranger's gun. I have to choose my stencil wisely. You can do any stencil, but I don't want to have to emboss forever. Easy. I have an embossing gun. All right, I'll just do a flourish. I'll just do part of it. So I'm going to lay my stencil down. Okay, it's in the box, laid like this. So I feel like a magician now. You can't see what I'm doing, and then I'll take it out and be like, look what I did. No, it's just sitting in there. Yeah, I know. You don't know what's happening, like the cooking show. And in the oven, look, it's a cake. All right, so now I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to go right through my stencil, and I'll just do probably the top half of that.
So your stencil will never be the same? Or
No, it's wet, so it goes into the water.
Okay.
And see all that? Well, you can't, but in the water you see it kind of just got this milky film, because all that came off. But if you let it dry, embellishment. Yeah.
So all you need is water.
All you need is water. Yep. So now we have this resist spray through my stencil, and now I'm going to apply embossing powder. Now, because I was chatty, it already started to dry. But it doesn't matter, it's still gonna be a resist because I can see where all that shine is. But this is gonna be awesome. So just know that you have an open time, but you don't have indefinite. It's not a snap moment, okay? Close this up. But once the powder's on there, you're good. So like if you were doing this, once you put your powder on, if you wanted to do 3 or 4 tags like that and then emboss all of them, that's fine, but just get your powder on there really quick. All right, we're gonna dry this. Now normally when I emboss, I like to use an embossing gun, right? Something that is cylindrical, focuses heat. Ranger's heat gun is great, but for embossing, it's just, I'm super impatient. It takes a little bit longer. And in demo world, this is like a week. Right? It's like, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? All right, but what's happening is this powder is not only melting, but it's melting on top of that texture. So that texture that you already saw, it's putting a texture on top of the texture. Normally with embossing powder, especially if you heat it, it becomes fluid and it often sinks into the surface, but not with this. This is getting nuggety. Look at that. That is gilded nuggets. All right, so we are embossed. Once we're embossed, we can do everything that we wanted to do before. If we wanted to just do a color, let's take something, we'll just take pink for you. And here I'm just going to go in, I'm going to spray this with some water just because I want to really blend this out. Focus my color on there. Do a little movement, and let's start drying this. This is where I love Ranger's Heat Tool, because now that I have embossed this, if I was home in a perfect world, I would switch to my heat tool, because now I can dry my ink without worrying about remelting my powder. If you only work with an embossing gun and you've got to fire it up to dry your ink, you're kind of melting that powder again, which means it's going to be sticky. That's all, right? So that's the only thing you want to be careful of. But here, it's not going to get that powder hot enough, so I can go in and kind of block some of that up. But you can see that even though I don't have powder on things, the resist spray is still the resist spray. It's still going to resist. So now you can start getting really funky even if you went in and like just sprinkled some powder. I've also used this for glitter. It's pretty cool. If you work really quick, you can get glitter to stick on top of this. Yep. I would suggest that the wetter the resist is, the better, because then it kind of coats around the glitter. Does that make sense? Almost really holds on. Because if you just do it like a topical, you can rub it off. But I've had a lot of fun playing with this spray because it's a great way to add a whole nother kind of texture to my background. Fantastic. To be like nuggety, chunkety rust. Like I'll pass around and feel it, but like tip it to the light and look at the embossing powder. That's kind of something we used to get with ultra thick embossing powder, right? We needed a thicker enamel to create that bumpy look. But now because we already have the texture of our resist spray, because it does, you feel it, it's like orange peel, right? It's not smooth at all. It has a really funky texture over the whole thing. Not so chunky that, you know, you couldn't use it in books or journals. It's great, but I love even those finest little sprays, those little mists. Yeah, that one's also embossed. This one's embossed. So we were trying a lot of different things, and people say, what happens if you just keep spraying? I'm like, well, it's just gonna keep layering. So you would think that your embossing powder would have melted solid, right? That's what would happen on a large area. It would smooth out. No, because it went on resist spray, even that area is all nuggety. This is getting big splots of it. So this one, I unscrewed it and I just shook the little straw on there to kind of get those big drips on there. Because I thought, well, gosh, how big can I get that? Because I knew if I was spraying it, I was only ending up with that one big area. So that's what makes it a really kind of fun product. And I think that how you're using it, whether you're using it with crayons or ink or powder, it just gives us another fun, cool medium to like spray it on and move on. I've used it mostly with ephemera, I will say that my use for it. I love to work on, you know, old paper or any of my ideology paper, and I like to ink it, but I want to make sure that a certain area is open. So I'm just using my stencils, spraying over my pattern paper, and then when I ink it, I've got another cool pattern over my pattern paper, right? So it's not just always about like white paper, ink color. It's just neat. It's a neat product. All right.
You can spray it on something you've already inked also.
Absolutely. Yeah, because this is only white because my paper was white. So if I would have inked this blue, sprayed over the top of that, and then inked over it with yellow, everything would have turned green except for the blue dots that it would have protected. So yeah, you can...
So it doesn't
will not re-wet. No, will not re-wet that layer. It's really cool.
Hashtag nugget.
Yeah, nuggety. Hashtag nuggety. Hashtag get a box. We've been telling you think outside the box. That's fine. Think outside the box, but still have the box because you're gonna need it. Yeah, that is the one thing I'm telling you. I've just learned my lesson. You go, no, but I work on a, I'll put newsprint down. I'm telling you what, it's gonna go everywhere. No, and I really thought, I tried so many different things. I tried parchment paper, wax paper. I tried anything to see if I could easily clean it, and no way. And I thought for sure this was going to be easy. I thought, I'll take the craft scraper, it'll come off. No, razor blade. And then my craft sheet was destroyed. All right.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to Scrap Time videos here on YouTube so you'll be the first to see all our videos from Creativation. And follow us on Instagram at Scrap Time Photos to see photos straight off the show floor.